Okay, so this smart layer using a camera raw filter should have taken care of your exposure issues and consequently your levels and your contrast. But if it did not, or as an alternate to this, what you can do, see, this eyeball just turns things on and off. I'm going to turn it off and make a new layer. So I have my original. I need to adjust the exposure. So if I come up here to adjustments, and this little black and white square is the exposure, touch that or click that, and I have an exposure layer. And I can adjust the exposure, make it lighter or darker. Okay, I would not mess with the offset or the gamma correction. It is beyond the scope of this class. If you play with them, you'll highlight the numbers and hit 0. Yes. Oh, that's 1. Okay, so this guy is 0'd, and this guy is 0'd. Okay, wouldn't mess with it too much. That's why I like the camera raw settings, because they're a little more subtle and sophisticated than this exposure. But this exposure layer is an alternate way to do it. I'm going to zero that back out. Now the levels layer, what that's doing is this is theoretical black and this is theoretical white. And then there is the reality of how much white and black and steps of gray in between, like dark gray, light gray, middle gray, in between exist in your picture. Now, whenever this histogram falls off before it reaches one of the ends, it means it hasn't perfectly hit, in this case, the white. So you can take the slider and move it towards the edge of the histogram, and it makes what should be perfectly white in your picture actually white. You've essentially shortened the scale. And if in this case there is some black, there's just very little, but let's say that this went off early. If I slid this in, shortened my scale, things would get darker. Okay, so if you're working with levels, if you need to, if the picture doesn't look right and you need to work with levels, take the sliders and move them to where this histogram, okay, this plotted scale ends, and things will look more appropriate. Okay, levels. So again, I click on this eyeball, which is live right now. If I click on it, it will turn that layer off so we can see the before and after. Before and after. So it looks a little brighter. So the whites look a little whiter and the darks look a little darker with this levels. So that's nice. You can also work with the contrast layer, brightness contrast. Click on that, it makes a new layer. And if we make things brighter, all it's doing is just taking everything and making it brighter. Everything in the picture is just lightening it up. Contrast, if I slide it to the right and give it more contrast, it means that the light areas are getting closer and closer to white, and the dark areas are getting closer and closer to black. So there's not much middle ground. Whereas if I slide it to the left, everything's moving more and more towards the center. Like the dark areas start to get a little more light gray, the white areas start to mellow out and get a little more light gray. Okay. A little bit of contrast is nice. Brightness, oh, it depends what you want to do. Try auto, see what it does. If you don't like that, you can always go back by hitting Control Z. It undoes it. Or if you don't like it at all, You can always grab a layer and throw it out and try again. Brightness. Let's make it more contrasty and really bright. Very graphic. These little arrows make this dialog box go away. Which ones make them come back? That would be the question. There it is. See this? That's how you get the info back. If I want to see what it's like without this layer, just turn the little eyeball off. Without this layer, turn the little eyeball off. Without this layer, turn it off. Let's see what the old camera raw filter did. That looks pretty good. Okay. Okay, so that's the end of like global adjustments as far as exposure goes. Actually, that's kind of nice. That's not so good, so I'm just going to throw that out because that didn't work. So the global adjustments to like the entire picture are done. The next stage is to do some local adjustments. Like I want to bring out some contrast or different color shifts on some small little areas. Is that's too bright, isn't it? It's all right. So that will be the next video, bringing out local adjustments.